Our final guest is one of your young guns, but he's
That's right.
the oldest.
He's
of
the oldest
the
of
young
the young
guns.
guns.
This is Alan Shlemon we're talking about. Alan, how long have you been with Stand to Reason?
Well, I think my first event with STR was October of 2004, so it's been about almost 19 years.
Wow.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
That's when we made you work for us for no pay. You were unpaid staff.
No, at that point I started working for real. I started
really?
as an unpaid staff in 1999.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was right around the time I got married, and that's what I recall our first interactions together. You came to our wedding. In fact, I
Right.
remember you gave 2 gifts. I think you sent a gift because we were going to get married, and then I thought they just sent a gift, so I better invite them. And then we invited you, and you brought another gift.
Wow.
You know, so that was you really stood out there for me. Yeah.
That's right. You knew how to milk us there. Yeah, that's great.
So you've been with us the longest, though, the longest of the young guns. You're our senior guy at Stand to Reason. So we've known each other a while. But I'm curious how did this all start, though, for you with STR? There's a story here that I've heard before. It'd be good to tell today.
Yeah. Well, it has a little bit to do with my testimony, and just a quick summary. Even though I grew up as a Christian, I ditched my faith in high school because I had really no reason to think Christianity was true. And so when I was challenged with just really softball sorts of challenges, I immediately ditched my faith. I was like, yeah, why, kind of pursue Christianity if I don't even believe Jesus is even existing? And so I left high school in that kind of state. I was living in England at the time when I was in high school, but then moved back to the States to attend California State University in Long Beach. And I was doing my prerequisites in physical therapy and met a professor of anatomy who turned out to be a Christian, and we were doing some research together. So he would talk to me and say, hey, seems like you used to be a Christian. I said, yes, I used to be. He goes, why aren't you anymore? I said, because there's no reason to be. He goes, well, what if I can offer you a reason? And I said, sure, go ahead. I mean, give it your best shot. There isn't any, but go ahead. So he introduced me to J.P. Moreland. He took me to one of his events and gave me a book, Scaling the Secular City. And that's what was my first introduction to apologetics. So I studied that and followed JP for a while, and then eventually 6 months later, I sort of recommitted my life to Christ. And at that point, I thought to myself, wait, how come I never heard any of this stuff before about apologetics? And then it wasn't long after that you, Greg, came and spoke at my church in Los Angeles for the college ministry that my wife-to-be and I were volunteering at. And you spoke, and my wife and I were like, this is precisely what we've been looking for, like this kind of teaching, this kind of thinking, this kind of person. And so we were going to get married, and we said, hey, well, after we get married, we need to support this organization. We need to help them. We need to encourage them, whatever we can to make STR continue, So we go get married, we come back, and then I remember we're like, okay, we're back from our honeymoon. Let's give Stand to Reason a call. So we made a phone call to the office, got the voicemail. We're like, hey, my name's Alan. Greg came and spoke at our church a while back, and we loved it. We'd love to, support you guys financially or whatever. And
the magic words there.
That's right. That's right. That alerted triggered all the alarms. Immediately, mail was sent to your house. So, anyways, that same day, that evening, you, Greg, called me, and I picked up the phone, and I'm like, hello, and you're like, hey, this is Greg Koukl. Is this Alan? I said, yeah. And I'm like, Jen, it's Greg. I was freaking out that you just called me right back. And then in a nutshell, you said, hey, yeah, we'd love to take your money. And
yes, the sensitive development approach. Yeah.
Well,
in
you
so many
got to
words.
get the. That's right. No, in so many words. I know it wasn't that abrupt, but you made a joke about that and said, hey, why don't you also come to our next staff meeting? And I'm like, oh, okay. And so staff, of course, was a lot of volunteers at the time. So my wife and I at that point in
what I called
1999,
unpaid staff.
That's right, unpaid staff. Yeah, so back in 1999, we started volunteering for STR. We'd get off work and we'd drive straight to the office up there in it was just near Palos Verdes. It was in Lomita.
Yes, that's right.
And we would just do everything: make phone calls, ship packages, anything we could do. Go to events, help man the book table, and that's kind of when it all started.
And you weren't a communicator at that time. in any of
No.
these things. This what you were a physical therapist.
Yeah, I was working as a physical therapist. So was my wife, and we just, we loved apologetics, and we tried to encourage it at our church and try to start things, get people reading books, and so on and so forth. But I was not a communicator. No.
At some point, we hired you.
Yeah, well, yeah. In 2003, you and Melinda and gosh, what's his name from Cool Strategies? Kurt Swindoll.
Kurt Swindoll, right?
Kurt Swindoll. You guys all approached me and talked about how, hey, actually, what it was is you, Greg, had a conflict in your schedule, and you asked if I could substitute teach for you at some church, and I said, sure, and I was really nervous at the time, but I went ahead and did it. And that happened, I think, 2 times. And that's what I think triggered your guys' thinking into, hey, maybe this guy could be a speaker for us. And then you guys eventually approached me. And then the rest is history. I eventually joined in 2004.
Yeah.
So, Alan, you've been with STR for 2 decades, and you speak on the easy stuff like homosexuality and transgenderism and Islam and abortion and all those things.
Evolution,
and we give him.
I
the
try to
easy
find
topics.
I look for topics where everyone can agree with me on. So
Okay, that's good.
Those are them. Yeah.
That's good. So, as you kind of look in the rearview mirror the last 20 years, what would you say is what makes Stand to Reason unique in your mind?
Well, there's several things. I'll say this one though for now, and if we have time, we can address the other one. But probably the thing that I think stands out the most relative to other ministries like ours is the fact that we create transferable tactics. Now, I know, Greg, of course, you wrote the book Tactics, and that is part of what I'm talking about. But I'm talking more broadly. We train and teach things that people can turn around and use immediately. And so just to give you kind of a counter example, like when you think of these kind of big name speakers, like I know Ravi Zacharias, since passed away and is disgraced and all that stuff. But I remember when people would attend a Ravi Zacharias event, many people would say, wow, that guy is an amazing speaker. He's incredible, right? And he's got a great command of knowledge and of, eloquence and so on and so forth. But no one ever walked away from an event of his and said to themselves, and I can do what he did. No one ever says that. And the one thing that caught my attention very early on with what Greg was doing, what STR was producing, was transferable tactics, things that you can take immediately and turn around and use. And of course, tactics in general, like your book Tactics and all the stuff you include in that, is certainly included in that. But even since then, I think you've inspired me and many of the other speakers to develop training in such a way that it's transferable, that it's usable, that people can literally turn around and as soon as they've applauded at the end of the presentation, they can turn around and use that. Hey, what do you mean by that? How did you come to that conclusion? Hey, I'm going to let Jesus take the heat, and all these other things that we do to create practical tools that anyone can use. And to me, this is what separates us from a lot of what is out there. And I'm not trying to diminish the fine work that other ministries are doing. I'm just simply saying I think this is something that's unique to what we at STR does and to our DNA. And I think that it may not always be as flashy or as exciting, but I know people walk away with something that they can use in conversations with their friends and family the very day that they've learned that content.
I talk of it as a bridge from the content to the conversation. And of course, the content's really important. And so many of our colleagues are producing the kind of content that we learn from and can benefit from, and then put into motif, as you said, that is usable, practical, immediately employable by other people.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, that's one thing that stands out for me. That's unique about STR.
Alan, it is just a joy to see your face up on this screen, and share a few minutes with you. I know that I've learned a ton from you, and I know that you've learned a ton from this guy, and that shows through. I mean, those character attributes of the ambassador model. I mean, watching you speak and comport yourself at events, I see the reflection of Greg and obviously Jesus, but it really is awesome to work alongside you.